Greg Williams, joined again on this Family Foundation Friday by our co-host, Mr. David Walls from the Family Foundation. David, thanks once again for joining us, brother.
Always good to be with you, Greg.
Yeah, it is, and I love what you bring to this. And so we're going to first of all start with something that relates to everybody out there in some way or another. Happy Father's Day to you. Got any big plans?
I'm looking forward to just spending time with the family this weekend, and actually I'm planning on going to the Sisters for Life Father Day
Excellent
event in Louisville, so that'll be fun. But yeah, hopefully it's a relaxing weekend for Daddy.
Good. most dads will go, just give us some rest. Just give us some rest. Whatever else you give us is fine. But yeah, I will be spending some time. You and many of our listeners know my dad has Parkinson's. It is a home, and I'm there at least 2 or 3 times a week, and Sundays is always one of them. So I will be spending some time with him. And then my wife and kids have something planned. I don't know. I think it'll just be relaxing, and maybe, I hope it's pizza, not grilling out.
Okay.
I love to grill, but not on that. So anyway, happy Father's Day to all of you out there. And we know that's not always easy, David. You know that. I know that. I work with people all the time who have what many would call father wounds. And so our heart goes out to them. And if you have any issues with that, certainly can give me a call and talk to me or reach out to me at loveandlordship@gmail.com. But we want to make it an exciting and a great day and celebrate fathers, because God has a great plan for them. So appreciate that, David. And I hope you have a great one, man.
Yeah, same to you.
Yeah. Now we're going to get back to some of the stuff that goes against Father's Day in so many ways. Unfortunately, but we mentioned last week, and we're now into it, halfway into the month, but we're in the middle of Child Grooming Month, or as the media, mainstream media, and others like to call it, Pride Month. And the Bible says pride goes before a fall.
Yeah.
So we can pray and trust, but we hope that we're gracious in what we're talking about here. David, there's a couple of things that are on the front burner. The first one I know comes out of Alabama, kind of stirred the pot. But the IVF issue, in vitro fertilization, would you share with our listeners what's going on with that?
Yeah, there continues to be a lot of conversation about the IVF issue. A lot of this goes back to the very righteous Supreme Court decision, the Alabama Supreme Court decision from a couple of months ago, where they essentially ruled that when an IVF clinic in Alabama had negligently destroyed the embryos, the children of some of their patients, that those parents had the ability to sue and hold the IVF clinic accountable for that. And in that decision, the Supreme Court, Alabama Supreme Court, rightly recognized the dignity of those embryos deserving protection under the law. And
which was a great move, by the way.
Yeah,
powerful.
but
move.
it really, put to the forefront, I think, for a lot of folks across the country, and from conversations that we've been involved in, really, I think, opened the eyes to a lot of Christians to think through, hopefully biblically, this issue. And there is just a lot of continued, very deep moral concerns about IVF as a whole, the industry, which really is completely not regulated here in the United States. The United States is really, in some ways, the kind of wild, wild west of the IVF industry. And so we had I know we plugged this a couple weeks ago, Greg, but a really thoughtful piece from John Worley on our team in our recent Citizen, just talking through the IVF issue biblically. We recently signed on to a statement with some of our allied friends, laying out what we believe are some of the deep ethical concerns related to IVF, and related to the dignity of embryos, and the fact that this process, the way it's generally done here in the United States, there's just so many concerns with extra embryos being created, the wastage side of it. I think the numbers are something between 1 million to 1.5 million at least. And embryos that are frozen in storage, that are likely destined to just be destroyed.
And those numbers are not included in the abortion or death numbers either. I don't think they are, right?
No.
So there's an additional probably million or more a year of life that is taken.
Yeah.
And so we've got to start there.
Absolutely.
I have to share this, and I want you to come back to you on that. I have some really good friends that went through the very initial parts of IVF in which they shared, they were having trouble, but they were able to get some help with themselves, their own seed, and in her womb, and have twins that were born on the same day as my daughter. We call them the twin triplets because we're godparents of each other's children. So some people that know us will know that story, but that was a beautiful thing. But you're right, the lack of regulation and the lack of respect and honor for the life that is produced there is something that's got to be regulated, because it runs wild after that in many cases.
It does. And so one of the other reasons why we're talking about this is because as we sit here today, there's a really concerning bill that is likely to be voted on, or just to have been voted on, the United States Senate. And also, there was a really big step that the Southern Baptist Convention took at their annual gathering this week, and they passed a resolution laying out some of the real serious ethical concerns about IVF, and reaffirming the dignity of human embryos, each and every human life.
Will you have that up somewhere?
Yeah,
that people can go look at.
Yeah, and folks have probably, there's been a lot of conversation about this, but I thought that the resolution, I am a Southern Baptist, disclosure, but I was really appreciative that they passed this resolution, and it's not resolutions in the SBC, they're not binding documents on churches, but it's just a statement of where I hope most Southern Baptists are, and really just another way in which that we need to continue the conversation to open the eyes, to think biblically, and to look and say, look, I think we need to set some protections in place at the state level. There's been a few states that have done that, but look, as you said, I have family members who've been impacted by this issue. We know that the desire to have a child is a good and godly thing that God has placed within us. And when that's done in the context of a marriage, it's a beautiful thing. We know children are a blessing from the Lord, and we know, regardless of the circumstances of how a baby is conceived, they are valuable and have dignity in the eyes of the Lord. The how a child is brought into, how a child is conceived, is not a question of the worth and dignity of that child.
Right.
But we do know, as you and I have talked about in the abortion context too, as it relates to exceptions and so forth, we can celebrate the value and dignity of each and every baby, while also saying government has a role to set up some protections to put in place. Because,
which is the role of government.
Absolutely.
Protect life is one of the things. And I would say this, David, it's interesting that the bench you've taken. I'm not a Southern Baptist, but I've worked with many in churches through our ministry and stuff, and love what they do. And I read it, and I think it's excellent. Their resolution that they came out with covers it really well. And so you'll have that up probably somewhere on the website, or where can people get it?
We'll share a link to it. And then I also want to mention, and this vote is likely going to take place, we're recording this a day before, as we sometimes share.
Right.
So that this vote may be taking place on this really problematic bill at the federal level.
Right.
We have recently sent out an action alert, and encourage our United States Senator McConnell and Senator Paul to stand firm against this bill that has a lot of deep concerns. And folks can learn more at KentuckyFamily.org on that issue, and we'll keep our supporters updated
a lot of prayer.
on that.
Need a lot of prayer. Please
absolutely.
pray for that. Our
and
legislators,
unfortunately, what we're seeing is, because of this ongoing conversation on these issues, we're seeing Democrats at the federal level, and honestly, there's debate on the left and right on some of these issues. My fear and concern is that folks might be trying to rush legislation in the name of trying to score a political point. And so
so they're going to pass it so we can then read it and see what's in it?
Well, this is actually like four different bills kind of all combined into one.
Of course. Right.
And again, I also want to encourage folks, our friends at the Family Research Council who are up in Washington have done a great job. You can go to their website as well, FRC Action, and see a breakdown of some of the concerns. But some other big news this week as well, Greg.
Yes, and here's the thing. We know that we started about Pride Month or Child Grooming Month. A lot of this is driving these things, and what they want to do with it, which is why we've got to be extremely prayerful and careful. another one on the other end of this is the Title IX developments, which we have talked about before. Tell us what's going on with that, Dave.
Yeah, so just to briefly, summarize, the Biden administration recently put out finalized really problematic Title IX rules that would essentially rewrite Title IX and put at risk female sports, really all of the protections that were put in place in Title IX for female and girls in the school context. Really just rewrote that. But there has been, I believe now, Greg, 26 states that have filed different legal challenges against those proposed rules, including Kentucky and Tennessee. And this week, the Kentucky Attorney General's office was in federal court, actually here in Lexington, arguing that case. I believe it's the first one to get into to have a hearing. There are attorney generals, Kentucky's attorney generals, and the Tennessee. They're asking for an injunction to halt the rule essentially from going into effect, which I believe it's supposed to go into effect August 1st. And we've heard that those arguments went really well. So thankful for Attorney General Coleman. And as he said, they were in court to protect women and girls and their opportunities to succeed. And he's called out the Biden administration's assault on Title IX that would potentially end 50 years of protection and fairness. So thankful for their leadership. Be in prayer over this case. And the other challenges, there's a lot of developments on this issue. Almost every day, there's something in a court somewhere in the United States going on this.
50 years of the women truly gaining good rights are all going to be blown away, all because of a fringe ideology.
Right.
That's really what's happening.
Sacrificing the Title IX essentially at the altar of the radical LGBTQ agenda is ultimately what this is all about potentially.
Ultimately, gender dysphoria, which is what it has been known as for years, and like 90-some-odd% of them grow out of that over time with good counsel and those kind of things. But they're just toss all that good science and research and push something that's a crazy agenda. So anyway, I know you've got something. I think you've got a date, but I do want to plug this so people can start saving the date for the Kentucky Family Forum, the second annual, right?
Yeah, we will be announcing a date very soon.
Okay, not quite there yet.
Not quite there yet, Greg.
Okay, we can't save it yet. You mentioned one, so I didn't want to say what it was, but you're working on that, right?
Yeah.
Probably will be in October.
Yes,
around that time. In that time.
We're looking at a Saturday in October, and we've had such great feedback from last year, and folks have been asking for the date. So stay tuned. Some exciting news to come, as well as some other smaller events that we're going to be doing, including one here in the Lexington area over the summer that we'll share about as well. Greg, and I know I'm going off script here a little bit, but I do want to also mention we are in the month of June. There's important Supreme Court decisions that are likely to be released and coming down this month. And want to remind folks, be in prayer. We could hear from the United States Supreme Court about whether they're going to take the SB 150 case over protecting kids from gender transition. That is still, we could hear by the end of June if the Supreme Court's going to hear that case or not. So be praying for our Supreme Court justices.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, please do that. And the cases before them. Thank you for joining us. Thanks always for your prayer. Join us again on Monday where we pick up another great message from the devotionals of Oswald Chambers, My Utmost for His Highest. Thanks for your prayers. Thanks always to the Lord. Make it a great day, and God bless in the love and lordship of Christ. I'm Greg Williams, and you're listening